Hello, today's lesson we will continue to find percentages of some quantity. Take a look. We're going to find some percentage of some quantity. And we're going to use what I call benchmark percentages in order to solve for percent quickly and mentally. Very important. Mentally is very important. Mental math, fast mental math, and percentage math is so helpful in everyday life. So let's take a look at the example. Find some percent of some quantity. Let's add some numbers. So let's find, 30% of 320. Maybe there were 320 farm animals on a farm, and 30% of those farm animals were horses. So how many horses were on the farm? So let's take a look. So first of all, I call this method first find a benchmark percentage. Now, benchmarks are those easy percentages that is so quick and easy to find mentally. So how do we do this? Let's go. I'm going to pick up dark blue. Find 30% of 320. For example, what is 1% of 320? Well, let's discuss what 1% means. 1% means 1 out of 100 equal parts. So in order to find 1 out of 100 equal parts, so let's imagine 320, we divide it into 100 equal parts, and we take only one of them. To find 1 of 100 is the same as to divide by 100, right? So we can say times 1 out of 100, right? To find 100ths of quantity, we can multiply by a fraction or divide by its reciprocal. So 320 divided by 100, we will say that it's 3.2. Now, and what do we do with 3.2 if we want to find 10%? Well, we can multiply times 10. Or how about this? Instead of finding 1% of 320, let's practice very quickly and easily finding 10% of 320. So here we go. 1% of 320 is 3.2. What did we do? We just divided the total quantity into 100 equal parts to find 1%. Now, how do we find 10%? Well, we all know that 10% is 10 out of 100, right? Or 1/10. So in order to find 10%, we have to divide the quantity into 10 equal parts and take only one part. So it is the same as dividing by 10, right? To find 10% is to find 1/10. To find 1/10 means you divide by 10 and take one part out of that. So it is 320 divided by 10, and we all know it's super easy. It is 32. So 10% of 320 is 32. Now, this is what I call easy benchmarks, okay? It's so easy to find 1%, 10%. That's why I call them benchmarks. How would we find 20%? Well, we would first find 10% and then multiply times 2, right? So we can say it's 32 times 2. We can do it this way, becomes 64, but we can also think of, so we can say double, right? First find my 10%, then double. We can also find 20% by thinking of it as a fraction first, like we've done so far. It's 20 out of 100 equal parts, which simplifies to 1/5. To find 1/5 of anything, it means you divide the whole thing into 5 equal parts. And you just grab one of those parts. It means to divide by 5. Well, let's think about it. 320, we can divide it by 5, right? That's not a difficult thing to do. 300 divided by 5 is 60. 20 divided by 5 is 4. And we get the same answer of 64. You tell me which method is easier for you, right? We can first find the easy benchmark, 10%, and then double that to get to 20, or we can think of 20% is 1 out of 5, right? And divide by 5. Now, how would we find 30%? Because our original problem is to find 30% of 320. Well, we can again start by finding 10%. 10% is easy. It's an easy benchmark. We divide by 10. So 320 divided by 10 is 32, right? That's our benchmark mark. And to find 30%, we would just triple that quantity, right? We would first find 10% and then triple that. So 32, triple that becomes 96. Of course, you can alternatively do the same thing and you can say, well, 30%, let's turn it into a very simple fraction. 30 out of 10 is 3/10. And guess what? To find 3/10, it means you first divide by 10 and then you take 3 of those parts, which is exactly what we've done. First find 10% and it becomes, any way you slice it, any way you figure it out, it becomes 96. Right, so we can do it 320, step 1, divide by 10, then triple the quantity, becomes 96. Now, another very important benchmark that shows up quite often is 5%. Let me highlight it, 5%. To find 5%, my friends, there's so many different ways to go about it. You can first find 1% and then multiply times 5, right? We can say step 1, find 5%. And then multiply 5 times, or we can find 10% and then divide by 2, right? So we can do it like this. We can find 10%, another easy benchmark, and then take half of that, right? Because 5 is a half of 10. So we can split that into 2 parts. And 32, half of that gives us 16, right? We can think of it like that. Or another point of view, always valid, we can think of it as 5 out of 100 equal parts, right? Which is 1 out of 20. To find 1 out of 20 equal parts, it is very easy to divide by 20. And what is 320 divided by 20? Well, you know, it is 16. So look at multiple ways to figure out our benchmark percentages, 1, 10, and 5%. Those are easy percentages. If you can find 1%, you can find 2, and 3, and 5, and 7. If you know 10%, you can find 20, 30, and 80, or you can find 5, right? By dividing it by 2. I hope this lesson makes sense for you. So let's just have a very quick example. Find, let's say, 25% of, I don't know, 320. I like that number for some reason. Well, how do we do that? We can say 25 of 100. It is the same as 1/4. To find 1/4 means to divide by 4. By the way, 25%, we can consider that as another easy benchmark, right? Because it's so easy to find it using mental math. So it would be, we would just need to do, right? 320 divide by 4. Well, 32 divided by 4 is 8. 320 divided by 4 is 80. So 25% of 320 is the same as 1/4, right? To find 25% means just divide the quantity by 4, and 320 divided by 4 is 80. I hope this lesson was helpful to you. We will use